Oh, welcome back to another episode of On Spot Sports. I'm Jack. Today's episode, we're joined by a very special guest, current professional hockey player, Brandon Contratto. Brandon has spent the last 12 years playing professionally all over the place in the Federal Prospects Hockey League, the New Zealand Ice Hockey League, Spain, Czechia 3, Czechia 2, and he's been all over the place the last 12 years, which is awesome. He's been to different countries overseas, different states in the United States. So I'm very excited to dive into all that and like your pro career. But before that, you spent time in the ACHA with University of Michigan Dearborn for 4 years.
4 years, 4 years, the whole
Four
split
years.
up a little bit, but yeah, the whole career, man. But yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. It's I'm very excited to like have you on. We've been trying to plan this episode for a long time, but you've been traveling. Like I've been busy with hockey and everything, so I'm just super excited to have you on.
Oh yeah, thanks. Thanks for making the time. Yeah, I know the travel schedule's been crazy. What you named off there, a bit of the resume feels like it's been a bit of the travel schedule over the last 6 months for me for different things. But yeah, glad we could finally make the time and get it going.
Yeah, absolutely. And like past year, you spent time in the MIHL, the Michigan Independence Hockey League with the Waterford Sharks, as well as back in the Federal Prospects Hockey League with the Elmira River Sharks and the Blue Ridge Bobcats. So this was your 12th year professionally. Like how's the body feeling? Like how was the season overall for you?
How the body's feeling is a day-to-day question, man. I'll tell you, I just celebrated my 34th birthday. So yeah, it's 34 doesn't sound like it's up there, but in hockey years, that's a far cry
Oh
from
yeah.
the mid 20s. But yeah, no, I mean, still grinding out, playing as many games as I can. Like you kind of mentioned, like I've had I'll call it like I'll say now maybe a more conventional road to playing minor pro. Like you see a lot of ACHA players coming into the Fed and coming into the SP and even the coast and everything like that. But I played back in like 2008 to 2000, to 2012, and it's like okay, my first year of minor pro hockey was during the NHL lockout, so a crazy time, and you didn't have many ACHA guys kind of making that jump. So I'm just trying to keep it going as long as I can and do that. But yeah, it was a bit of a crazy year. Like I play around my full-time job as well. Luckily I'm able to travel and do some things. And I've done everything from play to GM to coach in the Fed. So I have those contacts and kind of fill in when needed. But yeah, last year with Elmira, to get a couple games in with some of my buddies out there, with Jurich, Merkel, those guys running that team. What was great. Kind of back to our old bingo team that we had in Binghamton a couple years prior. And yeah, and then Blue Ridge welcomed me with kind of open arms. We're able to get a couple Sharks guys from Waterford that you mentioned, where I played a few games out there as well with me, and kind of out in the middle of nowhere in Virginia for those that haven't been there and in Withville. So a spot I hadn't spent too much time, but I mean, fan base was great. They're doing some rink overhauls right now. I'm not gonna lie, still been in contact with the team in terms of building things like back up for next year, and things like that. Just giving input when I can. Haven't been around for a while, so it was fun. It was exciting, and yeah, we'll see what next year holds. I plan to be playing some games somewhere, but we'll see where. It's interesting to see. I split my time between Michigan and Minneapolis, working. And I played, a few years back for basically a full season for Danville around working a full-time job, driving 6 hours each way to play
Wow.
games. So Danville kind of sits in between my two spots right now. So we'll see what the year holds.
Yeah, and like I like how like you are growing like Blue Ridge, like that arena is like pretty cool. Like it's an old barn. If anyone didn't know, like it's an old barn and it really like has a lot of potential for like how big the fan base is there and like it's just continuously growing. Like I've heard nothing but good things about the fan base over there, and it's just like I'm pretty sure making like what like if they're putting a bowl in or something like that this year or something like
Yeah,
that.
they're increasing the seating kind of like exponentially. There was a lot of for those that haven't been in that rink or seen pictures or whatnot. I mean, it's obviously a small town, like I mentioned, kind of atmosphere, Blue Ridge Mountains. But the rink was really unique. Like you had almost like a lot of negative space around the rink rather than like a concourse. You had like the ice surface sitting in the middle, then a lot of negative space. And last year they really built up the youth hockey program like Josh Newberg and all the guys that were there who had spent time around the league, were really bringing a youth program that never existed to that city and all that. So then a lot of that was made up the fan base and the families that were there and things like that. And now that's grown into building kind of like that bowl seating, um, more opportunity for youth hockey and things like that. So not only is it great for the town to have pro hockey, the players to have another spot to play, but it's also helping grow youth hockey, which I think is huge because that's what you see in a lot of the Fed towns, right? Like you have a lot of the fan base is made up of how how ingrained they can get into that youth hockey community. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool to be growing everything like that. That's what you want to is to grow the youth community because like then it just leads on to the bigger and better things within the community, and then it also helps like the pro team obviously, and just to get more fans, more support. And if you're a face in the community, like it also brings that recognition to the team as well.
100%, 100%. Yeah, and they're doing a great job of it there, and like I know you and I were chatting a bit, but like all those other teams that are growing out the Fed too, right? Like the Fed's adding quite a few teams. You had Baton Rouge last year as well, adding a lot of things down south, which is great. And all of those teams you see are like really working on building that youth side of not only the marketing but the youth hockey programs as well, which I think is huge. Another thing with Danville being back, right? Like I kind of mentioned the pro team being back, but I mean, there's so many fans. There's still people that
Yeah.
comment, message me on Facebook from when I was playing there for that season that we're missing having the team, the rink, everything. It changed the whole dynamic of hockey. Even just having an SPHL team in that rink, the Vermilion team that was there, but and then having a Fed team back just kind of brings back more of that smaller league feel for everybody. So
Yeah, it's good to see the league growing and everything like that. And like you've been in the league around the league since 2015, 2016, when it was the Federal Hockey League before it turned into the Federal Prospects Hockey League. So like what was that going from the Fed to the FPHL and just like how the league has grown overall.
man, I'll tell you the best way I can do it, and I'll give you the long and the short rundown, and you can stop me from talking when needed. But Joe Pace and I always used to talk when we were playing in Port Huron together. That we needed to write, like he's always said, he needed to write a book and quickly publish it of all the stories of the Fed. But that's the only way you can really capture everything that goes on. But I mean, honestly, my journey in the Fed kind of started even before what's on Elite Prospects Hockey DB. I don't know. I'm an old guy, so I
Yeah.
predate Elite Prospects. I remember when that came around, maybe my junior year, sophomore year of college or something. But yeah, so like I actually skated after I fit. So I did play 4 years in the ACHA. I split and actually went back and helped coach and play when the NA3 was around in Battle Creek because at the time I had skated in the All American Hockey League, which was the predecessor of the
Yeah.
Fed, for Battle Creek for the Battle Creek Revolution, which was the top team in that league at that time. Um, and I was skating there where that team decided I was going to finish my last 2 years of school rather than play out there. So I played in the NA3 team before the season started as a player coach because I went into college as a true freshman, played in the North American League my senior year of high school for half the years. So went as a true freshman and did things that way. But that was kind of my first taste of minor pro hockey. It was actually the All American League, and then I skated in main camp at the Port Huron IceHawks, who were in the IHL at that point, when that league was still around before it merged with the coast, and got kind of involved, figured out all that, and a lot of those Battle Creek guys ended up being the guys that were in Danville with Joe Pace and a lot of them. So as soon as my college season ended, my senior year, I my coach at the time, only for my senior year, was actually the coach and owner of Battle Creek the year prior, Bobby Clouston, and he ended up getting me set up. I went and skated with Danville for a few days after the season was over. Stayed there with Rob Schweier, Chris Affinati for the guys that go way back. Affy and I actually ended up playing in Danville together. But I was kind of in like the player coach's house and things like that, above a bar. I think it was like 12 and a half B was the apartment or something I was in for a couple of days. Real eye opening for me, young guy out of college, like not really knowing what that was about because not that many players were doing that at that point in
Yeah.
time. And Bobby had only taken over our college team even that year. So like I only knew about Battle Creek and some things like that. And honestly, I was given a lot of opportunity because I was, now I think they changed name, but it was the World University Games then. So in 2011, I played on the US team. We went over to Turkey for the World University Games. So it was like gave a little bit more exposure. I'd played a lot of the European players and things and had already been to Finland already in the off season to skate with some minor pro teams over there. So like I had some opportunity, right? So then I actually went and skated with Cape Cod before the season started and then decided to go play in the Czech Republic because I had a good offer. Started out well, now I guess it's called Czechia too. Country had a different name when I was there. But yeah, so Czech Republic, the second league, but it was during the NHL lockout. So like in our preseason games, we were playing like a lot of like League Magnus from France, top league teams, things like that. And we ended up by the time I was leaving the second league in Czech, which is called the First Liga, so Czechia too. It was you had like Wayne Simmons and Chris Stewart who were playing in Germany in the second Bundesliga, which is where we were, which now is Dell 2. I'm old, but that's like so anyway, you had all these high level players, so it was a learning experience,
Yeah.
man. I think average age of my Czech team that I played most of the season on was I don't know late 30s. A lot of NHL, AHL experience. Actually, my line mate, his son is now in the NHL. There was a running joke a couple years ago at the World Juniors because his name's Ivan, and they put like Ivan. You've
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
seen it. Like
Yeah. I've
it was
seen
a
it.
big joke, but that's that. I played on a line with his dad, Merrick. So like, and he's played for in St. Louis's system years ago. So that was how I kind of got into minor pro hockey. Like you mentioned, I've played everywhere. I played in Spain. I coached and played on Team Egypt. I've kind of gotten involved with a little bit of everything here and there. But I actually got into the Fed because I had a buddy who I played with um, in New Zealand because I ended up going to New Zealand during the off season each year, and he was playing for Berkshire in the Fed. So my first year in the Fed, I was coaching junior hockey in Northern Ontario and then driving 10 hours every weekend I could to go play all the way out in Berkshire in North Adams, Massachusetts, and then turn around and drive back. So yeah, it was crazy, but that's the type of stuff you do for the Fed, man. It's like, if you want to grind and you want to find a way to keep playing hockey, I mean, there's really no other league like it. So yeah, it's been an adventure. So I hope to keep it. Maybe we'll hit 15 years. I don't know. Maybe we'll hit 20. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, you gotta love it. You gotta love the game and all the grind that you have to go through to be able to do that. Like I was doing that from Watertown to Muskegon this year to get games and everything. So it's like and it was driving 9 hours to go get a game that day
Through the blizzard,
through
right,
through
man?
the
There's
blizzards,
always snow on that drive.
through the blizzard, and then which probably puts the car ride at like 10, 11 hours, and then go play a game, and then hopefully win the game, which I did win the games then, and then go back the next day. So it's just the grind and the crazy. People call it crazy, but it's like I love the grind and I love the sport.
Dude, and that's what makes like the hockey world kind of go round, man. Like people that are doing what you're doing, people are doing what I did. And yeah, I mean, seeing Watertown, like speaking of Watertown, the growth in that rink and community, man. I remember when I was in Berkshire, actually, you can look this up. The guy doesn't even pronounce my name right, so you'll get a kick out of it. But my first Fed game I ever played in was against the Danbury Whalers. They had a goalie that had played years in the AHL. You can look him up, Brownie. But yeah, Brownie, I think. But man, that was the only year the guy played in the league that I was there. But I just remember I had played D, beginner's luck, we'll call it. I put up 2 goals and 3 assists, 5 point night. It's either the next night or the next weekend. It all blends together. I can't remember. We went to play Watertown, who ended up winning the league that year.
Yeah,
They had everybody. They literally had Cody Dion, who I ended up playing with in Berlin the next year. They had J Mac, who's been back around the Fed. But like they were just unreal. But they had a guy who I was coaching junior, and he had played the year before when I was a director of scouting for the same junior team. He played for Temiskaming, and you probably know somebody that played Temiskaming in the Greater Metro League, the
yeah,
GMHL.
probably.
But this guy Corey Evelyn had played there the year before, and we get out. We might be through the first period or whatever. Cody D and I are going back and forth, and he's guys. I'm 5'7", 5'8" on a good day, right? Like for anybody that knows J Mac and Cody Dion, these guys, they're both huge, right?
Yeah.
And they're both my age. We're all 90s. So we had played against each other, AAA, all that stuff growing up. They're both, mucking and grinding, beating me to a pulp in the corners, everything else. And they're both points guys. They're guys that put up huge numbers. So I'm like totally irrelevant out there after having a 5-point night. Then all of a sudden I go for a line change into our bench. And all I remember is just feeling the biggest thud in the back of my head. And I just get absolutely sewered in the back of the head
Cool.
walking into our bench after plays over by Corey Evelyn. And bench is clear, all hell breaks loose. It's still on YouTube if you look up Watertown Wolves Berkshire Battalion line brawl or something. The guy does not call me by the right name, but literally, I feel like it was like, hey, welcome to the league, and hey, here's your little blessing. You're not even going to take a punch. Like, guy dummies me in the back of the head, rips me on the ice. Everyone's throwing haymakers, bench is clear, and I just kind of squirrel my way out of this little pile, and everyone else is still throwing haymakers. There ended up being a fight in the locker room. Their
Oh,
coach was in our room. It was an absolute mess. But it was like, oh, hey, welcome to the Fed. And that was the old rink where
yeah.
the fans were literally, you had to walk through the fans in Watertown to like get to your dressing room. So fans are throwing stuff, trying to fight players. It's like, you know, for those listening that don't think the Fed is like that now, the Fed's cleaned up quite a bit. There's still stories, but like that's the old school. That's when you had, the CHL, IHL kind of old school mentality going on. So
That's welcome to the original Fed right there.
before the name changes, right? Before the name changes.
Yeah, but those are like the stories like that you like could write books about. Like Pacer said that like my teammate Schmitty like says the same thing. Like he can literally write stories and like a couple books about stuff that's happened in the Fed, the minors, and just like. But like at the end of the day, like those are the memories that you're gonna remember at the end of the day when you do end up retiring. You're gonna remember those stories, those bus trips, those broken down buses, those bench clear brawls. Like those are the things that you're gonna remember at the end of the day.
Oh, 100%. It's a time spent, right? Like even with the bench clear stuff like that, like I was new to the team. Guys are standing up for me. Like that's hockey, right? That's how it is. And then those you're right. Those are things you remember. And I'll tell you, like one thing that I've been very lucky for in the ability to be able to like work full time and still find a way to play these games each year is like I get that time in between when I'm not able to be with the team and practice all the time and things like that, where it's like, okay, you miss the camaraderie, the
Yeah,
boys on the bench, like just the locker room time, all that stuff. And then, you get I'm lucky enough where I can go back and then okay, I get that for a little bit, and then you miss it again, and then you gotta go back and forth. Like I was lucky a little bit because right now I'm at my place in Michigan and we had the Motor City team come around a couple years ago and I kind of helped at the time get some of the guys going with that with Nick Field when he was a GM there and everything like that. And having a team so close, it's about 45 minutes from my place here to Fraser. Having a team that close is great because at that time I was able to still practice and things like
yeah,
that a little bit, like once, twice a week with them. So it was cool to be able to get back to that. And that's where I grew up playing AAA hockey too for Bell Tire. So it was, it was kind of cool. It's like, again, the Fed's full circle, right? It gave me an opportunity to be able to go back to like what I consider one of my home rinks growing up to be able to play. So
yeah. And like you've been a part of like expansion teams like Motor City. Like you were on Delaware when they were newer, and Binghamton
St.
as
Clair
well.
Shores,
Same
player
St. Clair
GM.
Shores, like so like what's it like going to like an expansion team and helping like build from the start, build from scratch and to see where like some of the teams are like bingo right now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's been one of the other than like the camaraderie side to me, that's one of the coolest things because I've been around like the game for obviously quite a long time now, and being able to do that and weigh in on teams like it, even Berkshire was an expansion team that year. So like if you kind of look at where I've played most of the time and a new expansion team that season. And I try to help where I can, right? So like I would say like there was always coaches or player assistant coaches or captains that I've known that have constantly been asking for that feedback. So being able to like chirp in and be able to give my knowledge while maybe coaching in other leagues or while doing other things has been unique and cool. But also being able to help some of the players that might get overlooked, quite honestly. Like
Yeah.
that's a lot of time like the diamond in the rough type players because I have traveled so many places. Like I even played a couple seasons, parts of seasons in the WAA in Ontario for Tilsonburg, and like being able to just see the different players and get exposed. And then when I was overseas, gives me kind of a unique perspective, I think sometimes. So people ask, but St. Clair Shores was a learning experience. Like I was not a owner of that team, but the ownership group partially owned the junior teams that I did own part of in the GMHL. So that was kind of my first like forte into it because I really saw the budget restriction side, like guys are just making ends meet. I always knew that, but really having to cut heads, move guys around because we were a pretty decent expansion team to start the season, and then we
Yeah.
quickly fell apart. I wasn't a player at the start of the year. My college coach was my old college coach. My first 3 years was coaching the team, who also happens to be my father-in-law. But he was and played in the NHL, and so he had the high hockey pedigree. So Fed was a wake up call for him. Let me tell you, having centered Gordie Howe and Bobby Hull in his career, and then go to coaching in the Fed, that was a new one. But he enjoyed every minute of it. It was his hometown, but that was eye opening for me, and I was able to learn a lot about the Fed and the rules and the ins and outs, and then take that, like you mentioned, to Delaware, take it to bingo. A little bit of input here and there once I was involved this year with Blue Ridge when I could. Motor City for sure. I know I wasn't there that long, like playing games, but I was there helping build the team. And I appreciate everything Nick Field, the opportunity he gave me to like give a little bit of input when that was going on. Myself, like I grew up college wise in junior playing against Giuliano, and him and I go way back. He's been around the league forever. So,
Yeah.
that's actually how he ended up getting involved. And now he's the input side and I'm just doing my thing. It's kind of cool to see how it unfolds. But yeah, Delaware was a cool one. I will tell you that because we were able to pull so many guys. Like I know you're doing your thing in Watertown, Penn's is there and all that. And it was cool with them building up Delaware, being able to play with him, Ryan Marker, all those guys that were all in Danville the prior year. And at the time, I was living for work out in Philly. Hour drive, live the dream, man. It was great.
Yeah, and like I've heard that Delaware, like the fan base, like I've heard that you'd be there for hours, just like because the fans just be waiting to get your autograph, stuff like that. And like I've heard that, and like they pack the place every single night.
Yeah, people overlook it because it's low seating, right? Like the seating is not that in terms of
Yeah,
like volume. They're like, oh, it only holds 500, 1,000, whatever. Okay, when you're in that place, whether you're the home team or an opposing team, because I went in there and played as opposing player too. Then the next year, and or even actually that year. But yeah, I mean, you feel like you could hardly breathe because there's so many people in the rink. Everyone's on
yeah,
one side, the benches are on the other side, and yeah, the fan base is absolutely crazy. And I mean, everything we honestly had there, like having like Team Dennis, having Doc A who was there, who still messaged me, came and dropped like team posters off to me the next season. And like, man, I mean, the whole thing was just playing there was really cool, really unique. And then, man, just more. The Fed stories, you can't end them, right? Like I literally got traded to Watertown and traded back to Delaware in the same day while Delaware was in Watertown playing them. So carry your stuff over to one room, get your Watertown gloves out. Okay, let me carry my stuff back. Like just this and then I got traded to Battle Creek a few weeks later. Then I got traded to Port Huron a few weeks after that. It's like the Fed ride just continues, right? Battle Creek, whole nother experience. We could probably spend 2 hours talking just about that, but yeah, we won't go down that one.
yeah, yeah. That yeah, that could definitely be like a 2 hour episode right there.
And it was great. Like I met some great guys. I had guys
Yeah,
that I used to coach, play with, but man, just that was a whole nother. Going back to the old AAHL All American Hockey League days is in the same locker room, same everything, man. I'm like, whoa, it's like blasts from the past to go back there like 10 years after, or originally being there. And like I said, player coaching kind of in the NA3. I'm like, okay, this is unique. So
definitely unique. That's for sure. But like you've spent 12 years playing professionally so far, so like what has been like a couple of things that you've learned throughout the years, especially as you got into the Fed, and then as well as like as the league grew as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think one like kind of just learning from the game as a whole, right? Like uh, learning how to just go with certain things, not
Yeah,
overanalyze certain things. Like I don't know, like we joke about the stories and things like that, but I will tell you, like sometimes people like obviously I'm in a so I work for General Motors, my full-time job, and like I take a lot of what I've seen and learned in the hockey world into what I do on a daily basis. Like it's literally life lessons, man. I'm
yeah,
telling you. Like, and that's I think a lot of players overlook that while they're going through it. Again, I've been able to get a unique perspective, and that's why I brought up the beginning where like I've kind of been working or coaching or doing other full-time things a majority of the time that I've played in the Fed, even if I've played full seasons. Um, so it's kind of been unique for me that way, but giving me time to like really see okay, like all the adversity you go through, like you talked about the buses breaking down, like
yeah,
we all have a laugh and we all joke about it, but your body being conditioned to somehow find a way to play a full 60-minute hockey game after maybe traveling for 18 hours now with the way the Fed's spread out. Your bus breaks down, you haven't slept, you're on the Port Huron bus, so there's not only 2 rows of seats in the entire bus and the rest are beds on the floor. Like you're whether that's good, bad, or otherwise to you, like that's you find ways around it, right? And I'm not gonna
yeah,
lie, there's been times where like I know, hey, I'm working full time, so I got to find a way to fly to this game rather than take a bus. Not because I don't want to be with the team, but because like I don't have time to sit on that bus, and then I got to make sure my body's ready to play too at the end of the day. So it's like there's different things that you learn how to overcome that adversity. I
yeah,
think that yeah, you're probably luckily not going to have to deal with that in the coast and the AHL and obviously in the NHL. But the grind isn't that much different, right? Like it's not 82 games like the NHL. It's not like every other day games or playing back to backs in two different cities, but it's a whole different style of grind that
yeah.
I think can serve everybody well, like whatever they're doing later in life, whether it's hockey or not hockey.
Yeah, that's a cool thing to learn. Like I've heard that plenty of times where it's like it's a life lesson no matter what. No matter what happens, you could use it in your everyday life. It's not just hockey. Like there's some way that you can apply what you learned here in a real life and what you have to do next.
Yeah, 100%. Like honestly, it served me well, and that's what I tell a lot of the guys. And you know what? I'll say like one thing to kind of like wrap up that question is like there's so many European guys that have got a chance to come over here and play. And I know we were kind of talking before the show started about European players and things like that, but like, man, it's you see these guys come over. Obviously, I've been there, done that. I've coached a lot of Czech players because we had a strong Czech background in our junior teams.
Yeah.
But like, perfect example, you may know, may not, but Matthias Kashik, he played in Port Huron, played in Danbury, still runs youth hockey in Danbury. He originally played junior for one of my teams in Ontario. Like now he's living permanently in the US. He's made his life, his livelihood in the US. Like he chose to stay here and built a life for himself all because he came over to play the Fed and played junior hockey originally over here. Like that's life changing, right? So like it's more at the end of the day, it is more it's hockey, it's a game, but it's a lot more than just the game. And like I don't know, all the stories make it a lot of fun, but I try to always think back to that to really give myself like, hey, like you don't know. I mean, I've been blessed. I haven't had too many injuries so far, knock on wood here, but I have had a couple, especially when I was in Motor City. And it's like, okay, you don't know when that last game is is
Yeah.
is literally going to be for you, especially in a league where, man, I always joke I don't get hit that much anymore. I wear like paper for shoulder pads, even playing D most of the time that I do when I'm playing. And yeah, I mean, I took a couple heavy hits in Motor City from those Danbury guys when that when they had all the they had Amesbury and all those guys there, and I'm like, holy shit, I gotta remember what this feels like. So a few stitches later, cracked my orbital. Yeah, not a fun go that year, but I'm like, okay, it makes me think, okay, is that my last game? When's the last game gonna be? We'll see. And then I always think back to Pacer. And as long as he's coming out of retirement for one game a year, I got to figure out a way to keep grinding. So Joe, if you listen to this, every time you get a game in, that means another year for me that I got to try to do this. So, but
You guys are just gonna just battle each other until you guys can't anymore.
that's it. Hey, I like being D partners in Port Huron. At least I knew what what was going on there. But I really think we would have won a ring that year. COVID cut us short, so we had a stellar team, and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I haven't. Him and I'll still talk, like message very occasionally, but I'm like, I'm gonna have to send him something and tell him to stay off the rink this year so I can catch up.
Yeah, let me know how that goes when you end up messaging him.
It'd be funny. He's always, hey man, he might challenge me into the wrestling ring or something. He's got more things going than I do. I got
Yeah, you never
pickleball and
know.
hockey. He's got wrestling and hockey, man. So,
Yeah, that's unreal though. But like the adversity you face, you talked about like you face injuries before. It's like what has been some of that adversity you've faced over your career that you've had to overcome, and like how do you overcome it?
so yeah, just I mean, adversity, man. I mean, kind of two different categories for me as a whole. Like the adversity of finding the time for the commitment to be able to like treat your body right, go through the same routine, be as committed to the game, 3 years into your pro career as you are on day one, and then the same at 8 years, 10 years, and so on and so forth. And like whether everyone has different stuff going on in life, right? Like outside of the rink, and not letting that affect your eating. And I'm not always the healthiest eater, but your workout, routine, things like that. And I say that because there's a lot of guys you could have on here from the Fed that have played on teams that would be like, oh my God, that guy eats like a food, that guy straight garbage all the time. But like whatever makes you have the best ability to, be the best version of yourself on the ice and continue to contribute. I'd say that's like the number one adverse side, because like the Fed, and I say that's for everybody, not just me, because like if it's me, it's a time thing, right? But for somebody else, it's what am I making per week per paycheck in the Fed? Can I afford to eat right? Am I getting taken care of by the team properly? Like everybody's at a different spot depending on where they're at in their career and what they're being offered by teams. And it is a grind. And then I'd say the second side truly is the injury side. Like I said, I've been pretty lucky, pretty blessed, depending on your viewpoint on things and who you are. I like to say I've been blessed to stay pretty much injury free for most of my hockey career. I've also, I've had to, I haven't always been untouched, like we talked about. Like there's respect, right? Like in the
Yeah.
Fed, and like it's not like I'm a big guy, so like I started out in the league with guys taking runs at me, right? And young guys will still take runs at me, but there's that respect factor among a lot of veterans in the league, and there isn't as much jumping and things like that going on. But I've had to be. I'm not a great fighter by any means, but my wife always jokes with me that hey, she played college hockey and pro hockey as well, so she has a right to say this, and she always tells me, hey, like you made a career out of figuring out the right time to turtle, and I'm like, come on now, that can't happen. But like being able to hold your own and stay in a fight and stay injury free. I mean, even as much as like I played on, like Tyler Howe was my D partner for a little bit in Berkshire when he first came into the league or came back into the league out of a lot of adversity in his own life. And dude, one of the nicest people I ever met, would stick up for me at every turn, but I still had to be able to stick up for myself, even with him
Yeah.
as a D partner, right? So like, and every time I watched him fight, I'm like, God, how's that guy not breaking his hands every time he throws a punch? Like, because when you're fighting 2 times a game for 30 games a season, right? Like, even if you're only playing home games, like some of those guys back then were, like, come on, your body's taking a toll. So, like I said, I was lucky for a long time, but like I've had my fair share of fractures and broken bones, things like that. But yeah, and then Motor City, a bad run of luck and cracked orbital, 2 sets of stitches across the same eyebrow about a month and a half apart. Just crazy stuff like that. But yeah, I'd say those are the big two things that I've had to fight through. And I think everybody does it on a different level, but I haven't had to go through a lot of the crazy off ice adversity that I really respect a lot of guys truly in the
Yeah.
Fed for being able to battle through.
Yeah, and it's like you could always learn from those adversities that come, and it at the end of the day it makes you stronger. Like if you get over that hump of like whether it be like the mental side of things, like the physical side of things, like once you do, like you become stronger than you were before, and it really helps you like be able to like hammer down on if another when another adversity comes, like you can overcome it.
100%. Yeah, every time you fall, you get back up, you're getting
Yep.
back up stronger. So I mean, that's a cool thing. You know what? A lot of the guys that have been around the league, guys that are playing still full seasons in the Fed, are guys that like I remember day one. I'm like, oh, like they're coming from this level of junior, this level of college. Maybe not having played in a few years and trying to grind it back. And I'm like, oh, I wonder how that guy's gonna like push through. Like I know they have this going on, that going on. Different home situations, different financial situations. Like it's impressive to see how a lot of these guys have battled through. And honestly, so many guys moved up leagues. Like the amount of guys from the Fed to the coast is way different now than what
Yeah.
it was 6 years ago, right? So pretty cool to see.
Yeah, exactly. It is cool to see, and like I want to talk a little bit about the New Zealand League a little bit here. So, like, what was your time in the New Zealand League? Because it is in the summer, right?
Yeah, yeah. So their winter is our summer.
Yep.
So started going over there because the first year that I played minor pro during the NHL lockout, all that. I came back here to the States a couple weeks early from my season in the Czech. I got traded, owed some money, some different things, some betting things from our team, not me. Like I had some betting going on against our own team. So I was our leading scorer at the time, and I sat the bench for a little while and started to kill my stat line, and I
Yeah.
had no idea what was going on. And later found out a little bit more of the truth, but I'm like, okay, so ended up on my own regard, kind of asking to get traded, wanted out of
Yeah.
that again, off ice adverse situation. And found myself in a different spot where the team wasn't inclined to make the playoffs. So I was back a few weeks earlier than expected, want to play some more hockey. My agent at the time was like, hey, Australia or New Zealand. I had a buddy that had a bad experience in Canberra for the Knights at the time, which was in the Australian League. So I decided to go play for the Botany Swarm, and yeah, the rest kind of became history. Anybody that hasn't been there, like, go check out the hockey, go check out the country. We at least go back once a year still. A lot of our best friends all live over there. Actually, our wedding, the maid of honor and our bridesmaids are both flew over from New Zealand. So yeah, we're like really, and the bridesmaids actually both play on the women's national team. They're sisters. So like we're really ingrained still in the hockey community over there. A season's pretty cool, 16 game season. I'd say the level is like probably similar to like low fed, high MIHL type level. Definitely high end of the MIHL, so like finals level. And then up from there. You get a couple imports per team. And yeah, normally they're like ECHL, maybe SP at the lowest level players. That league's changed a lot as well. But yeah, it's I had again, sometimes you get beginner's luck. I had a hell of a first season, my first year over there, and pretty much broke all the scoring records. So I had kind of my choice of what I wanted to do over there, and we ended up coaching the under 18 women's national team, and work towards our residency and things. And yeah, it's cool because it's winter, so you actually get to fly to the games too. Because only five there might be six now, but five rinks in the country at that time, and it's North and South Island. So anytime you're going to play in the South Island, you get to fly to games and everything like that, which is a lot
That's
different than the
pretty
Fed.
cool.
Yeah, so a lot different than the Fed. And then yeah, actually my first season down there, the rinks changed now, but there's a team in Queenstown, Southern Stampede. They used to have quite a few former All-American League guys and Fed guys on that team. Brian Dunford, who I played in Danville with, and had been around the Fed. Pens knows him very well. He was down on the Southern Stampede that year, but they actually didn't even have glass in the rink my first year.
That's what I heard. The first year, like they didn't have glass.
Yeah, they had, and they actually went. They started out when I was there. It was like tight netting in the Christchurch rink where the Canterbury Red Devils play, and where the Southern Stampede play in Queenstown. But I guess it used to be 2 years before that. It used to be like true chicken wire, like old school NHL chicken wire going up, where like you would hit your face into it, and you had to be careful, cut your
Yeah.
face, and all that. But yeah, it was unique getting used to like playing in that type of environment. But they love hockey. Like they are. It's rugby's huge over there and things like that. Field hockey's huge. So you go there, you got to make sure people know you're coming to play ice hockey and not just say hockey because they think field hockey first off. But Yeah, I mean, it's cool, milder climate in the North Island. And yeah, so I did that for literally years. Played for the Botany Swarm for a few years, was one of the captains there and helped recruit for that team imports and things like that for a couple years. And then I went and played part of a year for the Dunedin Thunder before I had to come back for work. And they don't have much fighting down there. And I actually I still think I'm laying my claim after saying I turtle, which I never said on here. But I think it was their first ever like true gloves off, center ice fight in the New Zealand Ice Hockey League. I'm 99% sure was me and a guy I used to coach with, a buddy of mine, Dean Tonks, who is from England, played in the I don't even know what it's called now, but it was the EPIHL, their second league back then, and played in the EIHL a little bit. And yeah, so he can fight, right? Like
Yeah.
that league has a decent amount of fighting. And yeah, we just squared off. I was in Dunedin, he was on the Red Devils, and we were in Christchurch, and that was a unique one because the refs didn't know what to do, and they literally like guided us towards the boards instead of like keeping us into the middle because it went on for a decent amount of
Yeah.
time, and yeah, it was just funny. So like that's that game has changed a bit and they've had some real strong players come down there. So, but yeah, I really encourage anybody that hasn't like checked either watching games because they're all streamed or like for guys listening that play in the Fed, SP, all that, like check out the New Zealand and Australian leagues. It's a little bit different on what they can offer and pay between the two leagues, but jobs pay great over there. And they all like we managed, my wife and I both managed an ice rink while we were there for most of the whole time we were there. And it honestly pays great. Like you come home with money and the teams take
Yeah.
care of you. So it's pretty solid.
Yeah, that's a great experience and such a cool experience that you wouldn't get if it wasn't for hockey.
Yeah, 100%, man. Hockey has led me to meet so many people, to do so many different things, and yeah, man, I'll tell you, like, I got to put my plug in for those that don't follow developing hockey. There's some cool, meaning developing country hockey. I'm very try to stay very involved. I was extremely involved a couple years ago, but
Yeah.
like Lebanese national hockey team, Egyptian national hockey team, Jamaica just won their first tournament. And I have a lot of friends involved in that. But hockey got me over. I got to go to Abu Dhabi and Dubai to coach and play for Team Egypt because they're not a part of the IIHF yet, and play countries like Tunisia and Algeria and the UAE. And I'm like, I honestly, that when you say like have an appreciation for what you get to do on a daily basis, like I literally sat there. We were like the second day. I remember sitting in the hotel room and they're streaming our last night's game in between jockeyless camel racing where they have like an electric whip on the hump of the camel. And I'm like, what am I watching right now? And then 10 minutes later, you have Egypt versus we're playing, I think Lebanon at the time on TV, and I'm like, man, like who would have thought like 10 years ago that I'd have any opportunity to do this kind of stuff. So there's unique opportunity out there with hockey. You just got to find it.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta love the sport, gotta love the grind and the process to get to where you want.
100%, man. Yeah, it's take every day in stride, and yeah, I mean just keep plugging away like we all are.
Yeah, exactly. But I know you gotta go, but I have two more questions for you from guys that posted on the Instagram questionnaire. And
Yep. I like
Aaron Shaheen asked, is in the Zegras Milano flip over net assist versus Gaylord this year one of the coolest plays you've ever had?
Yes, and I don't know if you remember that one as vividly or if you've seen that one, but yeah, it was
I don't
pretty
think
cool.
I've seen that one.
You haven't seen it? Yeah, I don't know. It was on our stream. I'll have to go back. I'll find it for you, but it's worth a watch because I'm the guy that I have no ability. I do a lot of stupid, fancy shit on the ice, but I have no ability to pull off a Michigan move ever. But I literally, I'm very good at finding the negative space behind the net, the old Gretzky space for a half second, and kind of throwing that fake Michigan sauce over the net. And I think I could be wrong. Shaheen will kill me if I am, but I think it was his first goal of the season. And could be wrong. But yeah, and he literally just picked it perfect, not even a half a miss, like literally perfect square into the top shelf. And I'm like, oh, this is unreal. And yeah, so and that was I think it was our first game ever playing together too. So yes, I will say literally if I think about like two coolest goals I've been a part of probably in my in my pro hockey career, minor pro hockey career. That and I like my between the legs top shelf move, and I had a little buzzer beater in bingo against them. We lost still, but hey, buzzer beaters are buzzer
Buzzer
beaters.
beater.
So,
Between the legs
yeah,
too. Can't help it.
yeah. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So I've watched that one. I don't watch. I'll watch film. I'm huge on that, like when I'm in season. But there's not many things I ever go back and watch. And
Yeah.
I actually have gone back and found the clip Shaheen's talking about and the other one that I'm referencing. So make fun of me if you will, anybody listening. But I like those two.
Well,
So
we'll have to pull it up and put it on the socials.
yeah, for sure, 100%.
Yeah, and then the last one is best moments with Frankie McClendon.
Oh, Frankie. Oh man, I gotta catch up with Frankie too. Yeah, him and I, man, Frankie and I have been everywhere together. Yeah, I don't know. I would actually say there's two players that have played in the Fed that I've been more places, more well, three that I've been in more places, more countries with. Frankie played in New Zealand with me, played for me in St. Clair Shores, was my first signing ever when I took over coaching junior hockey. Was the first guy I ever signed played for me up in Powassan, and ended up being Perry Sound then. But yeah, I don't know. I'd say, I don't know, just playing in general with Frankie, and then finally getting Frankie to St. Clair Shores with me. But yeah, I don't know, like just building those. It's those lifelong relationships, honestly. Like, and I've been so busy, I got to get back with Frankie, and it's like, we can. The cool thing is relationships like that you build, you can literally just be busy, be pulled 50 directions, and then because of the hockey world, because of what you've been
Yeah.
through in the rink, in the locker room, wherever, you can just pick up where you left off. But yeah, him, Robin Vortnoff, who's a Kiwi player who came over and played over here, and then Nick Rogers, him and I have been everywhere together too. But yeah, Frankie, Frankie's a definition of grinding, and I know you
Yeah.
probably know
Yeah.
him and everything like that, but that guy grinds as hard as anybody I know and has had to earn every opportunity he's had. So just seeing him do what he's doing, I think one of the coolest things is he came to Michigan, just came through, who was training. He goes to, I think he was just in Chicago training and things like that. And he came through Michigan, and we were able to, him, myself, and a guy that used to play for me, played college at Oakland University, Tom Kilgore, played with us in St. Clair Shores, Tommy Kilgore. We were able to just go out and like just rip some pucks like last minute at a small rink about 30 minutes west of here. And it was just like, hey, the band's back together. And at the
Yeah.
time, Tommy was going to play in the coast on a PTO. And yeah, so I'd say that's probably the coolest memory.
Yeah, I skated with Frankie when he was in Chicago, when I was back home in Chicago as well, and that was a fun time. Just picked it up right from the last time we talked.
Yeah. Frankie's just that kind of guy, man. And yeah, I mean, that's, talk about crossing the teams off the
Yeah.
the list and going through the grind. And yeah, everybody's done it, but yeah, it's cool to see, everybody's still grinding out. But Frankie was, he he got the taste of the New Zealand Ice Hockey League as well. So we might have to get you over there next. Who knows? Where, see where that
I could be
goes,
in for
man.
that. Yeah, we'll get something going, but I know you have to get going here. So Brandon, thank you again for coming on the show, and I appreciate your time. And hopefully, I play with or against you in the Fed this year.
Sounds good, man. No, thanks for having me on, and yeah, we're a lot of fun, and we'll catch up soon, either on the rink or maybe we'll get to New Zealand by the next season, one way or the other. All right.
Oh yeah, something like that.